Hi everyone, and welcome to the Research for Social Impact podcast presented by the Centre for Social Impact at Swinburne University of Technology. My name is Susan Pizzati and I'm the Principal Industry Fellow in Social Impact here at CSI Swinburne, and I'm delighted to be your host for this series. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we are producing this podcast today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and to pay my respects to elders past and present. For those of you who may not be familiar with CSI Swinburne, we are a highly industry-engaged, practice-oriented research and teaching centre based in Swinburne School of Business, Law and Entrepreneurship. We are one of 4 university-based nodes of the highly respected CSI National Network, which also includes the University of New South Wales, Flinders University and the University of Western Australia. Throughout this series, we'll be bringing you conversations, interviews and information from our researchers, sector experts, industry partners and even our students and alumni, aligned with our core areas of work, which include social entrepreneurship, social finance and investment, measuring and communicating social impact, community services innovation, and employment service system reform for marginalised groups. On today's episode, we'll be discussing a 3-year financial wellbeing project run by Whitebox Enterprises, which aims to strengthen the wraparound supports that employees within job-focused social enterprises receive. The project is the first bespoke financial wellbeing program created specifically for and with jobs-focused social enterprises. It's a 3-year program which commenced in 2023 with funding from the Ecstra Foundation, and it aims to help social enterprises embed financial wellbeing education into their support models to help employees to increase their confidence, skills and behaviour when it comes to money matters. Research has shown that improving financial literacy and resilience among people experiencing disadvantage can reduce financial stress and inequality. It can improve health, relationships and other aspects of wellbeing, but also, importantly, the ability to engage effectively in employment. With the latest evaluation of the project just complete, we wanted to take the opportunity to explore the findings so far and also to discuss how the project may continue to evolve from here. Joining me for the discussion today is Kelly Taylor, who's the National Program Manager for Whitebox Enterprises, who has been overseeing this project, and Dr. Chris Dembek, who's a Senior Lecturer and Researcher at CSI Swinburne, who has led the evaluation work on the project. Kelly has over 20 years of experience working across communities, social enterprise and government sectors, both in Australia and overseas. Kelly's approach is deeply underpinned by community development principles of practice, and her diverse skill set includes co-design with communities, cross-sector collaborative projects and partnerships, sector innovation and strategic leadership. It's great to have you with us today, Kelly.
It's great to be here.
And also with us today is my colleague, Dr. Chris Dembek, who is a Senior Lecturer and Researcher here at CSI Swinburne, with expertise and experience in using business strategy and business models for social impact and complex problem solving. Chris has extensive global experience working across different sectors and delivering high quality research, education and advice to investors, companies and not-for-profit organisations. Of particular relevance to this project is Chris's extensive experience in social impact evaluation. Thanks for joining us today, Chris.
Well, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, as I've just mentioned, our topic today looks at financial wellbeing for employees of jobs-focused social enterprise. And before we dive into the details of the project and its evaluation so far, it would be great if you could give us some background on how it all came about. Kelly?
Well, at Whitebox Enterprises, what we're trying to do is create a world where anyone that wants a job can access one. Mm-hmm. And so we're doing 3 things. We are building businesses that create jobs for people furthest away from opportunities to employment. We're strengthening the sector by providing advisory and finance, and we are involved with systems change work so we can innovate and improve the systemic barriers that prevent people from accessing meaningful employment. And we're doing that through a payment by outcome trial at the moment, otherwise known as the PBO. And essentially what we're doing within job-focused social enterprises is strengthening and building wraparound employment support models. So this involves assisting people to come into a job, keep their job and progress themselves onto other career pathways with our support. So once people are in the job, wraparound supports help them work on their challenges and make the most of the opportunities where they can achieve their full potential. This might include things like literacy and numeracy, trauma from different life experience or negative employment experiences, English second language, accessibility, all sorts of things. And so we saw a gap in relation to financial literacy and wellbeing support within employment support models. So through our work and our deep understanding of those models, we thought we could integrate it in with other wraparound supports because money decisions relate to so many other wellbeing outcomes for people. Because we're already working with the PBO trial and 15 participating job-focused social enterprises, we saw a perfect engagement platform to utilise. And it's been great to have the support of Ecstra Foundation, who's doing a wonderful job providing funding to community organisations and the like to deliver financial wellbeing programs. And they saw this opportunity with us to tap into the job-focused social enterprise sector to broaden their impact.
Amazing. And you've talked there, Kelly, about the importance of wraparound supports, but if we think specifically about the financial wellbeing aspect, what makes that so important in this context?
Well, through our project, we can learn more about how financial wellbeing education and training can be effectively designed and delivered whilst people are on the job and already within a wraparound support environment at work. So often people might receive a little bit of education and training when they're at high school or through informal supports like family members or friends, but quite often it's not whilst they're in employment where it's most applicable to learn the skills and change behaviours. So we want to learn what are the success elements to both design and delivery in this context and with diverse cohorts and communities. And we want to know if and how co-design with lived experience is crucial to this approach or not. Furthermore, we want to learn how this is important for the staff also that support employees, so their knowledge, confidence and skills are improved to better support people.
And when you talk about financial wellbeing, what do you mean?
Well, financial wellbeing means different things to different people. It's the skills, it's the knowledge, it's the self-management of actions and behaviours, it's the confidence, but ultimately it's the resilience to be able to face situations that involve money when life gets tough. And if you're someone that's coming into a job from a disadvantaged background, having experienced a journey through life which has had ups and downs and potentially really negative experiences, then the pressure is on even more about money-making decisions. And there's so many influencing factors from complex relationships, family environment, and other influences. So it means different things to different people. And that's why it's important how we design it is that it's tailored to suit the people that we're training and to better equip the staff to understand those contexts in which people are learning about it.
Great. And once you identified the need for this project, what were the next steps?
So we looked at how we might have a particular framework or approach to the design of the program. We took a very developmental approach. We needed the program to be agile and responsive as learnings emerged. So we didn't have predetermined outcomes on what we wanted to achieve, but we worked rather with a set of principles and a framework which allowed the contributions of lived experience as a crucial element, a framework that was also agile enough to be responsive to the unique operational framework with which job-focused social enterprises operate in, because social enterprises are running like normal businesses. So there's lots of resource constraints and pressures and capacity. So we need to look at that environmental context. We also needed to shape the evaluation framework, which Chris will talk about soon, to be able to capture the types of data that would show us what was important in terms of key elements of success for this program, and a delivery that integrates with existing wraparound support models within those social enterprises so that when the program finishes, the organisation is able to effectively go on and embed and implement that for the future. So we want to build the capacity of those organisations as well as improve the financial well-being of the employees or individuals themselves.
Yeah, I imagine that's an incredibly important part of the entire project. And how do you go about structuring a program like that then? Can you describe what it looks like in practice for it? What's actually involved for the participants?
Yeah, so there's key stages in that framework. The first thing we really need to get good in-depth understanding of is the support model that exists within that job-focused social enterprise. What does that look like? Who are working with those employees? What types of support are already being provided? So we can understand how a program such as this will effectively integrate with that existing support model so it's successful. And then we look at a co-design stage and we invite participants, which include support staff themselves, as well as employees with lived experience, into that co-design process so that we can understand how our foundational content of financial education will be shaped and tailored so that it's relatable and it's motivating to learn about. And we can only understand that through co-design because people with lived experience of different money decision-making scenarios will be able to tell us the types of things that they come up against day to day, week to week, inside and outside of work. After we've been able to tailor that program through co-design, we're then able to look at what that delivery will look like within the organisation. So that could be training the staff themselves. It could be shadowing the trainer. It could be working directly with employees. We also need to take into context that different social enterprises will be at a different level of maturity in terms of their support model infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And that's key because that will influence their capacity to participate and also understanding how it will effectively integrate.
And you've built the content, as I understand it, around some sort of core topics. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we know from literature and existing evidence on financial literacy and wellbeing that there are some key, skill or knowledge gaps in the general population of this topic. And it's particularly more emphasised for those experiencing disadvantage. So we created some foundational content to look at those core areas, and then we engage with the co-design process to really tailor that and refine that to suit those employees and those support staff in those enterprises. It's really important to find out what is relatable and important to participants, both employees and staff, what staff are observing in their day-to-day scenarios with people and how they support them. But the lived experience is crucial. So making no assumptions from the start about what people need or want or are motivated to engage with, and breaking down those barriers to participation and learning and engagement. Sharing of stories and experiences and understanding that scenario-based learning is actually pretty crucial to how we shape an effective program.
And what have you learned so far?
Lots of different things.
I bet.
The lovely thing about the evaluation framework is that we've been able to really gather the data around those learnings and then continue to improve the program year to year. We've also learned through the co-design process the power of peer-to-peer learning, which a lot of people know the power of peer-to-peer learning, but the connection between employees and staff within that co-design process is also important, because sometimes in organisations people are working very closely with people, but through that co-design environment they're able to see things they didn't see before or hear before. And we're able to build that environment where we've got comfortable, safe spaces, hopefully, for people, for discussions, identifying where learning could also be extended or shaped to be more accessible. And we've also learned how to facilitate discussion in other modes of learning so we can dive deeper and really involve more lived experience about how money matters shape people's decision making. And it ultimately impacts all other areas of life and general well-being. And it's particular to cohorts and communities where there could be cultural frameworks of practice, there could be negative peer influences that have impacted people's past decision making, and people are looking forward to their goals, and money is a big part of that.
Yeah.
So within their wraparound support models, we are hopefully strengthening that work with our collaborating partners.
And have you seen the impact on participants so far? Have you been able to sort of capture some of those real life outcomes?
Yes, I have a real privilege to work so closely with the enterprises, with both the staff and the employees. And with that privilege, I'm able to hear amazing stories where there's been positive impacts for people, especially if it's occurred directly after training, where there's real tangible outcomes and the employees and the staff can see those tangible outcomes emerge. Mm-hmm. So a great case story is Jacob, a crew member from YMCA Rebuild, who participated in the training. Initially very overwhelmed, a lot of debt exacerbated by anxiety and not wanting to face it. Mm-hmm. The program equipped Jacob with the confidence and skills to tackle the problem. Within a day, he established payment plans, and with assistance with his caseworker, there was a discovery of a prison program that reduced his debt from $9,000 to $200.
Wow.
And the confidence that he gained from not only bringing the debt down, but was his application of the skills to go through the process. And it's quite infectious for people. Once they see a reward or a positive outcome, it motivates them to tackle more of those problems. And debt's particularly one that we talk about in the training, and how we can prioritize and action things and see those small wins, and they are like an avalanche. The more you hit, the more you get confident.
Absolutely.
Another lovely case story was Ruby from Ability Works, who I remember really clearly. It was such an enjoyable session. And Ruby was telling me that she was reading and paying her own bills, but she was seeking greater independence, especially from her parents, on how to budget. She learned budgeting skills. She gained confidence in how to do that. She engaged with her peers in how to do that. She even shared her own expertise and ideas around that, which is what we want to see in peer-to-peer learning. And so a sense of empowerment and success in life with achieving greater independence for Ruby was a really, really great positive outcome. We also had a great outcome from last year in our collaboration with Ability Work, who didn't just participate in the co-design process with creating their own tailored program, but we also engaged them to develop an accessibility toolkit to ensure that future iterations of the program are accessible to everyone, regardless of their abilities. And Dominic from Inclusive Design Projects team at Ability Works was a key lead in this collaboration. And Dom was just wonderful because he was able to take the lead on that work, and it was a real partnership. The outcome was a wonderful toolkit that we can now spread across all the other enterprises we continue the program with, so that they can make their programs more accessible.
Amazing.
One more participant that completed their first ever tax return following the training, really nervous about ringing the ATO. So what we find is with a lot of participants, we can teach them skills, we can introduce tools, but it's really that building that confidence and resilience. And often that is communication and negotiation skills, and having the confidence to do that, especially with institutions, which can be nerve-wracking for a lot of people, especially if they've had a lot of experience of being disempowered. So really nervous about ringing the ATO, consumed with debt and what might be owed, but was able to ring them, have some scripting about what some of those communication lines could be to start the conversation, and also was able to get a little bit of assistance in completing the tax return and got a refund and bought a car.
Amazing. There you go. So call the ATO.
Yeah, that's the message. Call them.
They're incredible examples that you've just given us there, Kelly. Thank you for sharing those. And obviously, we have permission to share the stories of the people that we mentioned. So I just think it's important to also acknowledge that as well. Chris, what about you? What sort of outcomes have really stood out to you in the evaluation work that you've done so far?
So all these examples that Kelly talks about are really great, and we've seen a lot of the effects on individual people who participated in the program. And also, what I want to add is we've seen quite rapid effects also for the enterprises themselves, especially in two ways. One is improving their training programs, and another one is by, in some cases, converting the training actually into a product and ideas for creating additional income. So the entire process of participating in that program actually in some cases resulted in very nice examples of innovation.
Amazing. It's interesting, isn't it, with those sort of intended outcomes of the project, but also the incredible unintended outcomes that can occur as well, and add a real positive aspect that you may not have been able to see previously. That's great. Thank you, Chris. And what have you learned more broadly about the project from the evaluation to date? Kelly, can we start with you?
I think the importance of learning from every co-design process. There's something learned from every single collaboration with each enterprise, even if you're working with a similar cohort. So if you're working with people with disabilities or people from refugee backgrounds, and you work with another enterprise from those communities, there's always something new to learn because there's diversity within diversity, right? So that is an ongoing learning cycle. And I think in program design and delivery, we're really lucky to have that, I guess you could say, reflective practice built in so that we can continually learn and improve the program and be really on the pulse with where people are at and how they are offering different lived experiences that shape their worldview and how they approach money-making decisions that affect the rest of their other areas of their life. I also think we've learned more about the different contexts within social enterprise structures, and some of those things Chris will have touched on, where there's resource constraints or there's other pressures because they're operating in a real marketplace just like other businesses. And we're providing that wraparound support where other mainstream employers may not be. So there's additional resourcing cost and attention that's needed to support people to get on that road to achieving more potential and potential transitional pathways to mainstream employment. But I think one of the most important things is how we've designed an underpinning practice of building internal capacity and self-efficacy within participants first before going to dependency on services and supports. They're there and they have a place and a time, and we have amazing services and supports in our community sector, especially in times of crisis. But we want to build internal capability within individuals first. What can you do for yourself? Starting with what's strong and the strengths-based approach, and having people identify those things first not only builds their confidence, but also helps them with that independence moving forward, so that when they leave that social enterprise and go on to the next career or the next job, they're better equipped and confident and resilient to handle all those other pressures that come outside of work that affect them coming to work.
And what about for you, Chris?
So 3 learnings for me from evaluation here is, one is the speed at which we see the effects emerge. Usually impact takes time. In this case, we've been really surprised with how rapidly impact can actually emerge. So, in some cases, as Kelly provided a few examples, it's basically almost immediate effects for individuals. And a bit later for organizations also, so at organizational level. Second is the breadth of impact. So really touching and influencing different spheres of life of individuals and different areas of organizations. And the third one is, it's really, I think, a very important learning, is the importance of listening. And, we've seen many times that involving employees with lived experience early in the sessions, in the co-design and the process of the program is fundamental for creating good outcomes. And, including employees with lived experience often results in the company learning something new, creating something they wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So additional to just the direct outcomes in terms of the outputs in terms of the program and the design. So the accessibility toolkit is a great example of that. And, importance of listening may seem really obvious, but it is surprising. It's how often it actually doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And I see that, across different areas of my work and research. It's, be it government, be it companies, be it social enterprise sector. Listening is really very important and unfortunately doesn't happen too often. So that's why I think that is also a very important learning and a necessary highlight here.
It's a really interesting point, Chris, and as maybe just think back to your point earlier, Kelly, around the agility and flexibility of the approach and the really importance of tailoring what you're delivering to every cohort based upon what you learn about them.
Yes, and I think the other beautiful thing that has merged organically is that once you start to work with several enterprises, then you have this lovely collaborative approach where you're sharing the learnings across the enterprises. And that can only strengthen the program and the capacity of the sector.
Fantastic. And so looking to the future then, what are your hopes for the project from here? Chris, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Look, I think is my dream and hopes for the future is to be able to create a similar approach in different areas beyond financial well-being and beyond social enterprise space also. So imagine, for example, training like this for future parents. Say, I wish I knew this earlier. And so and we've seen that these kind of programs really help this. So that's my dream and hope for the future, is to be able to develop something similar in different areas to improve people's life and society.
Amazing. Kelly?
Yeah, just off the back of what Chris was saying around where we could go beyond this, is it would be great to scale and offer the program out to more job-focused social enterprises, but perhaps even into mainstream workplaces. I think there could be a lot of opportunity into just, mainstream workplaces where a lot of people are coming to work and they're masking a lot of stuff that's going on. So employers and workplaces being able to be not just more inclusive, but more in tune with what employees are experiencing and what they're coming to work with on their shoulders, and building resilience around that with money, I think could be quite beneficial. There's also huge economic benefits from this for those from marginalised backgrounds who, have that willingness and motivation to work, but it also makes really good business sense for employers with massive skills and staff shortages across industries. And that's only going to increase the skills shortage. Wraparound support model funding in general is really needed across job-focused social enterprises, and financial wellbeing is a core component of this model. So other life skills that are included in wraparound support, foundational employment readiness skills, all of those things. Aligned with this is that we've got a recent response from the federal government with the Work Foundation initiative. And this initiative prescribes that social enterprises and other businesses, even corporates that are applying for that initiative, need to include financial education in their program. So that's a real positive sign that we're seeing recognition of its importance in the context of wraparound supports and in other sectors outside of job-focused social enterprises.
I can't quite believe we're at the end of this conversation already, because it feels like we're just getting started, but we've covered a lot of ground, and it's been great to hear from you both about the work that's being done. I'd just like to ask my final question around something that I ask all of our guests, which is, if you had an unlimited budget to put towards a new piece of research or education in this area, what would you spend it on? Chris, we might start with you.
I would spend it on creating a system or a hub where employers could collaborate and find support in delivering the most effective support for their employees. Now, such hub would also help us evaluate impact that training has across broader employment system, and not only on the level of individual employees or companies. And finally, it would help convert the skills and knowledge needed for delivering quality financial well-being training into organizational knowledge. And this is really crucial because, as Kali mentioned at the beginning, social enterprises are working in very tough environment, and as any businesses, or even more, kind of really change dynamically. So many things can happen. People leave and so on. And that's why you need to convert the skills into organizational knowledge and not just rely on single individuals in the organization. And because otherwise you can really lose it all very quickly, and all the investment is likely to go to waste. So I think a hub like that would help us prevent that from happening.
Such an important point, Chris, in terms of longevity. Kelly, what about you? What would you spend it on?
I would invest it in the employee journey. So from the point of first entrance, so first job or re-entry after a long term of unemployment into a job-focused social enterprise, through to the transition into mainstream employment, and looking at it, say, twofold. So there is a broader benefit to educating the employer as well as the individual on the journey. Mm-hmm. I think that there's a big gap in mainstream employment and how to appropriately support and create an enabling environment for employees, not just from disadvantaged backgrounds, but in general. And for those employees who are facing complex challenges, there's a real education piece for those employers to tap into their talent, use their strengths, but understand how to appropriately support them to do well. Financial well-being would be a core component of that in the educational journey, to really improve their confidence and resilience through real life scenarios of what happens outside of work with money decisions and how they come to work, sustain or don't sustain work.
Really important points there from both of you, and hopefully might be some people listening today who might be able to help us with that unlimited budget. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
It would.
Well, thank you so much to both of you for your time today. It's been really interesting to learn more about the project and to hear from both of you. You've given us a lot to think about, and I'm sure people will be wanting to learn more about the project after listening to the episode. We'll be putting all of the links to the information we've discussed today in the show notes, but if people would like to contact you directly for more information, what's the best way for them to get in touch? Chris?
The best way is whether LinkedIn or the Swinburne website.
Great. And Kelly?
Yes, me too. LinkedIn, where there's a link to the project from my profile, or the Whitebox Enterprises website.
Perfect. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed our discussion with Kelly and Chris. And as always, please feel free to contact us if you have any follow-up questions or feedback on this episode. We love hearing from you. Thanks for listening, and we hope you can join us again soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.